They say when you're in the city you should always look up. I say you should always look up and look down because you never know what you're going to see. I'm going to prove that theory right now in this episode of Astonishing Glasgow. In this episode, I'm going to take you to the north, south, east and west of Glasgow to look up and down at the places where the city's history is in full view if you just know where to look. And sometimes it's a lot more obvious than you might think. I'm going to start at the People's Palace on Glasgow Green. Now sadly, the People's Palace is shut for renovation in 2024 when I'm making this video. And even if it was opened, this piece of the city's history is not that easy to find as it's on the floor. You've really got to know where to look. Now I'm not talking about this poem at the front door. This plaque that we're looking for is at the back door, and with a bit of inside knowledge and assistance, I was able to get a look before the doors were locked to the public for the last time. On the floor just outside the side door to the glasshouse, there is a plaque remembering the museum's most trusted and hard-working employee, Smudge the Cat. Smudge applied for the role as Chief Rodent Catcher at the Palace in 1979 and soon became a trusted employee at the museum, carrying out her role tirelessly. Soon she became a bit of a celebrity at the People's Palace. She featured on a range of souvenirs, and you could even buy ceramic replicas of Smudge designed by Marjorie Clinton, but Smudge was never one to forget the struggles of her fellow workers. Smudge was a union cat, and in the 1980s she became a fully fledged blue-collar member of Branch 29 of the General, Municipal and Boiler Makers Trade Union. She tried to join the National and Local Government Officers Association, but was turned down by the mice in charge. She led campaigns to save Glasgow Vet School in 1989 and the Pause Off Glasgow Green campaign of 1990. In late 1990, she was feeling like a change of scene and accepted a job in Stirling Smith's art gallery, taking along her human Elspeth King with her for company. Sadly, Sister Smudge passed away in the year 2000, and the plaque in her memory was installed at the People's Palace to remember the only cat to become a member of the GMB Union. I'm not going to visit these sites in any particular geographical order today, and as you can see, the Scottish weather is really doing its best to stop me filming anything, but I'm out now, so I'm going to keep filming. The next plaque is on Argyll Street, and if you are Glaswegian, you will probably have walked past it without even knowing it was there. On the corner of Argyll Street and Virginia Street is this plaque marking the site of the famous Black Bull Inn and the visit by Robert Burns in 1787 and 1789. Burns was a bit of a regular visitor to Glasgow and was famously thrown out of the Saracen Head pub on the Gallowgate for his rowdy behaviour. So I bet that it was a lively night when he was in the bar of the Black Bull Inn. Onwards and upwards to the High Street, and this is possibly the last place you would expect to see a trace of 13th century Glasgow. In 1246, a community of Dominican monks known as the Blackfriars built a convent on this part of the High Street. After the Reformation, Mary Queen of Scots gifted the buildings to the University of Glasgow, which was built on this land in 1460, and incorporated the original church to be used as a parish church for the students and the professors. In 1670, the church was hit by lightning, leading to its demolition, but was rebuilt by 1702. When the university moved to Gilmore Hill in the West End in the 1870s, the land was completely cleared to make way for the High Street goods yard of the railway. So where is the connection to the 13th century? What is the title of this video? Look up. You've always got to look up. Tacked onto the side of this modern building, at the corner of the High Street and Blackfriars Road, there's a clue, is this decorative stone featuring the face of one of the friars. The stone was donated by Glasgow University to mark its presence on the High Street, but other than that, I'm really struggling to get any more information. I would love to know if it is an original stone to the old church, or if it is a reproduction, but I'm hitting a dead end, so if you know, please let me know in the comments section or via the social media feeds. All the links are below. I'm going to continue up the High Street now to get to the next bit of Glasgow history that's hidden in plain sight. Right behind this bus stop is where modern surgery began. Dr. Joseph Lister was an English surgeon whose research into infections and bacteria revolutionised surgery throughout the world. He introduced carbolic acid to sterilise instruments, hands and wards, promoting the principle of antiseptics. And he did it first right here in Glasgow's Royal Infirmary. It's hard to believe that cleaning things before surgery could be revolutionary, but there you go, it all starts with clean instruments. Speaking of instruments, the next plaque is dedicated to a musician, but to be able to show you, I now need to go to Maryhill. 2 miles from the Royal Infirmary, amongst the tenements of Maryhill, is Wilton Drive. About halfway up Wilton Drive, at number 18, is our next plaque, and it's time again to look up, because right here is the birthplace of William Primrose. Surely you've heard of William Primrose, one of the greatest musicians who ever lived? Yeah, I'd never heard of him either until I found this plaque. William Primrose was born right here in 1904. At the age of 4, his father taught him how to play the violin, but refused to teach him the viola. This just made William want to play the viola even more. He studied with the Belgian master Eugene Issei. I've probably demolished his name, but at 21 he was soon asked to join the London String Quartet, which took him on a European tour in 1930 and then a tour of the United States in 1935. Arturo Toscanini picked him to play lead viola for the NBC Symphony in 1937. In 1938 he had his very own US radio show featuring his viola playing, and he had also formed the William Primrose Quartet. Touring North America, Canada and Latin America, he performed as a soloist and with a number of orchestras, as well as with his own group. You've actually been listening to William Primrose playing in the background as I've been telling you about his story. And by the time of his death in 1982, he was so famous he had his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which I would have visited had I known his story while I was there a few years ago. From stars in the pavement to stars in the sky, the next site is not so much a plaque, it's a monument to the stars, and the first of its kind to have been built in Britain in over 3,000 years. As you can see, June in Glasgow is being as wet as you would expect. But maybe, if I dance around these cuddies in my dressing gown, the summer will start to improve. I'm in Sighthill at Glasgow's very own stone circle. This was, in its previous position about 200 metres away, the first set of astrologically positioned stones to be erected in Britain for 3,000 years. Before they started building the new houses, this was the site of the former St Rollock's Chemical Works, itself marked by a plaque on the underpass under Baird Street. You can't accuse me of visiting tourist traps. This is about as far off the beaten track as you can get. Now the chemical works were vast, but they were shut down in 1964. Part of the site was used for the older Sighthill estate and its tower blocks, but this area was waste ground, sometimes known as the Stinky Ocean, as nearby was the pool where chemical effluent was dumped. In 1978, Glasgow's Parks and Recreation Department asked astronomer and science fiction writer Duncan Lunan to build a mini Stonehenge in the city, and the top of this hill, surrounded by wasteland, was deemed to be the perfect location. The stones were moved one more time during the redevelopment of Sight Hill in 2024, but with the return to the project of Duncan Lunan, the 17 stones were carefully re-erected and aligned with the stars, and the sun falls in line with the 4-ton centre stone at the spring equinox, although there's not much evidence of sun today. From ancient standing stones to ancient royal stones, on Woodlands Road, if you look at the sign above the Arlington pub, you will see it mentions the Stone of Destiny, the ceremonial coronation stone of Scottish kings from the 5th century and of British royals from the 13th century, right up to the most recent coronation of King Charles in 2022. The stone was returned to Scotland in 1996 and is now displayed in a brand new museum in Perth. But if this pub is to be believed, Perth has a fake, and the real stone is behind these walls. On Christmas Day in 1950, 4 students broke into Westminster Abbey in London and removed the stone to bring it back to Scotland. The police searched for 4 months, with the stone finally reappearing on April the 11th, 1951 at the altar of Arbroath Abbey, and it was quickly returned to Westminster Abbey, or was it? Rumour has it, particularly in this bar, that the stone returned to London was one of the copies made whilst it was missing, and the real Stone of Destiny is still in the Arlington pub in the West End of Glasgow. I would go in and find out, but my shoes are so wet I'd be leaving a puddle on the floor of the pub. It's not the first time I've left a puddle on the floor of a pub, so I'd rather not do that again. Sounds like a case that needs more investigation. We need to call in a sheriff, and by luck, there is one of those just 2 blocks away. This is the Sheriff of Calton Creek. This is the Lobby Dosser and his trusted steed, El Fideldo, transporting their prisoner, the rank Badgian, back to jail. The Lobby Dosser cartoon strip ran from 1949 to 1956 in the Glasgow Evening Times and Sunday Mail, and was created by William Budd Neal. After Neal's death in 1970, the Lobby Dosser cartoons remained popular, being passed down generations, and in 1992, thanks to a public fundraiser, the Lobby Dosser statue was created by art students Tony Morrow and Nick Gillen. It took a loup a few years ago when somebody tried to mount it, but it was fixed and still stands here on Woodlands Road. Now, I don't have a clever connection for the next plaque, but since it's on the Kingston Bridge and that connects the north and the south sides of the Clyde, I'm going to say that one counts. Even though the plaque I'm here to see is not the one on the bridge, marking its opening by the Queen Mum in 1970. Running along the west side of the bridge, this building site was once Cheapside Street, and what happened here in 1960 is marked on a plaque at the other side of the bridge. This whole area would have been filled with warehouses in 1960 to store goods going onto and coming off of the cargo ships on the quayside. The warehouse on Cheapside Street was a whisky bond, and on the 28th of March 1960 at 7:15 p.m, the fire brigade were called as smoke was seen coming from a second floor window. 1 million gallons of whisky and 30,000 gallons of rum were stored here. 450 firefighters were on site, fighting the blaze when the wooden barrels split in the heat and caused a massive explosion. Blue flames leapt 40 feet into the air, and the force of the blast blew the front and rear walls off the warehouse and into the street. Flying rubble killed 3 firefighters instantly on Cheapside Street, and the collapsing rear wall buried 3 fire engines and killed 11 firemen. It took a full week to extinguish the flames as they had spread into neighbouring tobacco warehouses. The event and the lives lost are marked on this plaque just below the bridge, and sadly, Glasgow has a grim history of firefighters losing their lives. I talk about the Kilbirnie Street disaster in episode 21. The link is in the top right of the screen, and I'm afraid to say we stay with firemen who lost their lives in the next location. I'm now in the Gorbals area of Glasgow, and I would have loved to have shown you the Gorbals boys' statues on the way past, but some rotter stole 2 of them a few years ago, and they have never been returned to this site. What I have come to the Gorbals for is a plaque on the corner of Cumberland Street and Cumberland Place. On Wednesday the 15th of November 1967, Station Officer William Clark died while trying to save 4 children from a house fire. A paraffin heater had overturned and set fire to the kitchen. The alarm was raised and neighbours tried in vain to save the children. When the fire brigade arrived, Station Officer William Clark, who was 47 years old, was one of the first into the building. He suffered a heart attack and collapsed while fighting the fire. He left his wife Agnes and 2 sons, David and Alan. The children's mother, Nancy Coyle, leapt from the window and survived, but her children, Catherine aged 5, John aged 4, James aged 2 and 6-month-old Margaret perished in the fire. All that's left in the site is this plaque set into the pavement near the scene of the disaster, but it can be quite difficult to see as it's hidden under a tree and it's covered in moss. Now I can't finish the video with such a sad story, so 2 more plaques left to visit. I've gone back across the river and into Glasgow Green from the Gorbals, and as I pass under the MacLennan Arch, we are just over the road from the High Court, and round the side is the smallest marker I will talk about in this video. On the wall of the High Court, if you look carefully through these railings, you will see this small brass plaque marking the height the Clyde reached in the Great Flood of 1782. Just enough time for one more story, and we have got to end the video on a high. During this video I have broken another camera, so apologies if the picture quality has been off at times, but I'm on my way home to the south side, and on the way I'm stopping off at Fotheringay Road next to Maxwell Park Railway Station. At number 33, to the left of the close door, is this brass plaque marking this as the birthplace of James Allen Mollison MBE. He was born here on the 19th of April 1905, and what makes him famous enough for a plaque? Well, James Mollison was a pioneering aviator who set many flying records either solo or with his wife Amy Johnston. He obtained his pilot licence at 18 through the RAF, and at the time he was the youngest officer in the service. He left the RAF at 22 and began to gain a reputation as a playboy, but he was still a very skilled pilot. He started breaking records in August 1931 when he flew from Australia to England in just 8 days and 19 hours. He then set the record for flying from England to Cape Town in 4 days and 17 hours. He met the equally famous aviator Amy Johnston during a commercial flight and proposed to her just 8 hours later. Amy went on to break his England to South Africa record, and the press dubbed them the Flying Sweethearts. The record that really made his name was set in 1933 when he flew the world's first solo east to west crossing of the South Atlantic, flying from England to Brazil in 3 days and 13 hours. By 1938, James and Amy had divorced. James was drinking heavily and Amy was rivalling his records. Amy was killed in World War II whilst ferrying a plane for the Air Transport Auxiliary. James managed to survive the war and bought a pub in London and remarried. He died in 1959 from his alcoholism, but will always live on in the records he set and on the plaque at the doorway of 33 Fotheringay Road in Astonishing Glasgow. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. If you would like to help me make more episodes of Astonishing Glasgow, please hit that super thanks button to make a donation. Every penny is gratefully received, and these are the viewers who have shown their support since the last episode. You can also support the channel by buying merchandise over on the Spreadshop site. I've got a new camera to buy after this episode, so any profit will go straight back into the channel, and you will get yourself a hat, a shirt, a mug or a sticker. It's a win-win. If you want to get in touch, leave a comment or visit the social media pages. All the links are below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time in Astonishing Glasgow. Right, I'm away to demolish a packet of half-covereds. I'll see you next time. Bye now.